Hello and welcome back to another in-between episode of Gazeta Brazil, Gazetinha as the locals might call it. I'm Euan Marshall and we're here today to talk about the last 16 ties of the Copa Libertadores, which will take place this week, and 4 of them including Brazilian sides. So let's get to it. So the first of these ties will take place on Wednesday evening as São Paulo travel to Mexico to take on Toluca, and usually this would be quite a difficult prospect as the game will be played in the altitude and São Paulo have had to travel 5,000 miles to Mexico City, but as it turns out Wednesday's game is going to be a mere formality as last week in São Paulo decimated an absolutely terrible Toluca side and won 4-0, so they should now be able to just turn up on Wednesday and barring any disasters, they will have their place in the quarterfinals. Now, a few weeks ago, São Paulo looked almost certain to be eliminated from their group, and they've managed to bounce back after a few very impressive results against River Plate and away to Bolivian side The Strongest. Now, the nature of the Copa Libertadores, with a lot of knockout games squashed into a small period of time, it means that momentum is extremely important, and if São Paulo are able to keep this up, they could actually turn out to be a good candidate for the trophy itself. Now, later on Wednesday, we have Brazil against Argentina as Atlético Mineiro host Argentine side Racing in Belo Horizonte. Now, last week, this first leg ended 0-0. It really wasn't a very good game as Atlético Mineiro were very cautious. They brought their defence very deep and they were looking to play long balls into their Argentinian striker Lucas Prato. He was left very isolated and couldn't really make much of an impact on the game. Expect a very different prospect on Wednesday night though in Brazil because both sides need a goal, and the home crowd at the Arena Independencia in Belo Horizonte are very demanding indeed. Now, while all that is going on, Brazilian champions Corinthians will be hosting Uruguayan champions Nacional in São Paulo. That's another one where the first leg finished 0-0. Now, while a draw away in Montevideo is not to be sniffed at, Corinthians were heavily favoured for this game, and against a very average Nacional side who defended responsibly, Corinthians were unable to amass one shot on target throughout the 90 minutes and now have to do the job at home. But Corinthians have only failed to win one of their last 14 home games, so they should definitely have enough about them to put away Nacional and move into the quarterfinals. Finally, on Thursday, Grêmio are facing by far the toughest task of any of the Brazilian sides left in the Copa Libertadores, as last week at home against Rosario Central they fell to a 1-0 defeat and now have to go away to Argentina and turn the tie around. And this isn't just any Argentinian opposition, as Central, despite a recent slump in results, have been one of the best footballing sides on the continent in 2016, and they absolutely suffocated Grêmio in the first leg. Now, my fear is that if Grêmio don't manage to turn this around, which is definitely possible, that Grêmio could look to sack their young coach Euan Marshall. Now, this would be a disaster because in the space of a year, Roger has managed to turn Grêmio from an ugly set-piece side into arguably the best passing team in Brazil. So to undo all of that good work right now would be an absolute disaster. And finally, let's just take a look at today's newspapers and the results from this weekend's Brazilian football. We had the first leg of the finals of the state championships, and in São Paulo, Audax and Santos played out a 1-1 draw in Osasco, and it was an interesting game. Audax played quite well, but advantage is definitely with Santos for this second leg next week. And in Rio, Vasco managed a 1-0 win against Botafogo, and they should now go on to win the title. Likewise, in Rio Grande do Sul, where Internacional were 1-0 winners against Juventude, they only need to avoid defeat at home. And as we pointed out last week, Atlético Mineiro did have one eye on their match against Racing and rested a few of their first team players against América Mineiro in their state final. They fell to a 2-1 loss, and how much they pay attention to the second leg will depend on whether or not they progress against Racing on Wednesday night. And finally, in transfer news, Palmeiras have agreed the signing of Colombia's Olympic centre-back Yerry Mina from Independiente Santa Fe. Now 6'4" and 21 years old, Mina is an excellent investment for Palmeiras. He's full of potential, and a 5-year contract is going to give him plenty of resale value after a few years in Brazil. And it's nice to see, because Palmeiras have suffered in the centre defence for a good few years now, and it's good to see them going to the South American market where there are plenty of value, plenty of talent there to be had, instead of just going for the classic Brazilian mid-table options, which have not worked out for them so far. So there we go. Join us again soon for some more Brazilian football chat on Gazeta Brazil. I'm Euan Marshall, and do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube page, and we will see you again soon. Ciao, e até mais.